Hi, my angels. I wanted to make a little video that is really inspired by a question that I probably get asked the most as an artist, and that is, who inspired me? What musical references have I grown up with? Why do I make the kind of music I make? And I am here to break that down for you today, because I would not be anything without the musical inspirations in my life. I want to start at the beginning, which is my early childhood. The first thing I think of is a weekend cleaning the house with my mom, with my dad, and we are listening to Motown. And a lot of that was Aretha Franklin, a lot of the moment I wake up, before I put on my makeup, I say a little prayer for you. That is like peak childhood memories with my parents at home. And my mom loved the Supremes, so we listened to a lot of that, Diana Ross and the Supremes. That is a really special early memory of mine, and probably my first kind of musical, or my first introduction to music. And as I got older, I started to get into Christina Aguilera, and elementary school me loved all of the good, like, early 90s, late 90s, I guess, artists, and I was always inspired by really good vocalists, and that is what my dad wanted me to listen to, was like the best vocalists. So I would listen to a lot of Brandy, and I feel like a huge thing that shaped me in my childhood, and the sound that just feels like home to me when it comes to vocals, is Brandy and Whitney Houston in Cinderella. That is like my biggest inspiration as a kid, and I literally could make me cry. But anyway, their voices separately and together are like just peak childhood inspiration for me, and of course in my adulthood as well. I would not be a singer without those two. As I got older, I really started to kind of really got into India Arie. Like, I remember one of my aunties, Auntie Faith, shout out to you if you're watching this, she listened to acoustic soul on repeat, and that was my introduction to India Arie, and I was never the same after that. Her tone, her range, her voice, her power, her message, all of it to me is like ultimate inspiration. And that was a huge part of me growing up, was listening to her, and I still do, and I think that all of the R&B girlies would probably agree that we would be nothing without India. And as I got older, I definitely was into all kinds of things. I had an emo phase of music. I really listened to so much because my parents listened to so much. My dad was always, and still is, a big Tool fan, Radiohead, Willie Nelson, Stevie Wonder. He was, my dad is such a huge part of my love of music, and he plays and sings as well, and writes, and that to me is, I mean, my dad is my biggest musical inspiration. My dad had an opportunity to work with Patti LaBelle when I was really young, my dad and my uncle. She is the epitome of soul. She is the epitome of vocals. She is just one of my biggest inspirations, and I got to meet her when I was a kid, and I don't even know what I would do now if I met her again. I actually went to her show at the Hollywood Bowl last night as part of the Blue Note Jazz Festival, and yeah, she is just incredible, 82 years young, and those vocals are vocaling. She's really special to me. And as I got older, I really started to fall in love with Rihanna. I was so inspired by the way that Rihanna, not only her songs were so catchy and so fun, and I loved her tone, but also just who she was as a person, who she is as a person, how she is such a businesswoman and sees such a vision for herself. She doesn't just do what everyone else is doing. She is not afraid to take risks visually, musically, in the fashion space, etc. That is so inspiring to me. I feel like Rihanna is every woman, and I aspire to be that way. I love her down. In high school, I was listening to a lot of hip hop, a lot of rap. I have always loved Eminem. I am a Lil Wayne stan. Kendrick Lamar, of course. And I also discovered the incomparable, incredible Nina Simone when I was in high school. And I was changed from that moment on. The freedom in her voice, the ability to, watching old videos of her, the way she would get on stage and just command a room. It didn't matter if it was a huge room or a tiny room. I think she has the ability more than any other artist to pour her feelings out with every word and every phrase. And she is just, there's nobody like Nina Simone. And I have taken that into every project I've ever done, the love of jazz, the love of Nina Simone. And I also grew up in the Baha'i faith, and that is a religion from Iran. So much of my childhood was spent at religious gatherings, listening to beautiful chanting in Farsi and in Arabic, and that is also a huge part of who I am, and my musical influences when it comes to Arabic music and the Arabic scale, and so that is also reflected in a lot of what I do, as well as my dad was a choir director in church, and I come from a family of singers and that sing in church choir, and that has always been a part of me as well. Those are really my biggest inspirations as an artist. I also grew up listening to so much Sade, and her tone, her delivery, the lyrics, her melodies, how when you listen to a Sade song, it's her immediately. I always aspire to that as well, to really define my sound, to really hone in on those vocals. Another artist who I love and have loved my whole life, because of my parents and their impeccable music taste, is George Michael, George Michael was just a visionary and vocally so tender and so powerful at the same time. And I've always been inspired by him as well, and really trying to have a well-rounded sound and be myself. And a lot of these artists that I've named are really known for that, for having powerful vocals, for having a powerful stance in their music and their message, and ultimately being themselves. And I just wouldn't be anything without these artists. And my dog Wolfie agrees as he barks and runs to the door. But he listens to them all day long. And when people ask me, like, what's the new thing you're listening to? What are you listening to at home? What are you listening to in the car? It is usually those artists that I just named. And I love so many new artists. I really do. And, I spend so much of my time listening to my own stuff, listening to bounces down, listening to vocals that I want to change, listening to songs that are being mixed and mastered, etc. But when I'm not listening to those, I am listening to the greats. And I hope I didn't forget anybody, but those are the people that stand out to me the most. Love you guys.